food. I don't know. I mean, I'm surviving on coffee right now.
What does that mean? Do you want food? Is your husband talking to you?
That is my child saying,
Oh,
um, and there we are. um, he is. We eat at weird times, so okay. Maybe a pot pie. Good. And let me mute that because we don't need to be hearing what I'm saying there. And we shall see. Looks like we've got more people coming in or trying to come in. Are you allowing people in, or do you have access to let people in? Or
I haven't seen
we've
any.
got we've got one, two, we've got four people in right now. So it seems like they can just come in. I don't have to
Yeah,
let them. Yeah. Okay.
yeah, I haven't been
Um,
dinged.
okay. Gabby, you're in. Gabby, are you on the call? I just want to make sure. Okay. And Melissa, it looks like you're in. Okay. Well, we usually wait for to
Yes,
8:05 to
I'm
actually.
here. Sorry,
Okay.
I'm
No, no
driving,
worries.
but I can hear you.
No worries. I just wanted to make sure on my end that you could hear. So, okay. So we normally wait until 8:05 to start the meeting, specifically the community meeting. So welcome those of you who are already here. Oh, okay. Okay. Let me see. You want to share it on Laverna in the library from YouTube, from our Moms for America YouTube page.
You want
And
me to share it?
then
Or are you talking to me?
yes, yes, you. Uh-huh.
Okay, I will do that right now.
And we have one more minute and then we will start promptly at 8:05. And then I'll just say notes.
And where am I finding it? That you're
Oh, on Utah Moms for America on YouTube.
YouTube, from YouTube. Okay.
Yes. Yep. From YouTube and share directly. And then I just need to make sure that we are recording, which we will start in right now. Hey everyone, welcome to our Moms for America community conversation. Tonight we're going to talk about book banning, what it is and what it isn't. I'm so excited that we have Brooke here today, and Brooke is Laverna in the library. Another fun thing is that she's actually one of our team members. So Brooke is really passionate about all things protecting kids with the books. And so we will get this discussion going. If you have any specific questions that you want answered, please feel free to put them in the chat. And we always start with the Pledge of Allegiance. So are you ready with that so that you can share your screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Here we go.
Perfect. Okay.
I'm going to take my audio off so it doesn't sound delayed. So you can be the one doing it, but my audio's off.
Okay. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Then we always have a prayer. And since people aren't in yet, I guess I will do that as well. So unless you want to do that, Brooke, do you want to? Okay, I'll do it. Dear Heavenly Father, we are so grateful to be here tonight. We're grateful to be able to um, just to be able to take the pillars of Moms for America and to amplify what it is that we do, to help parents be better equipped to protect their children, to help them if they have questions, feel like they're in a safe place to ask them, um, and to stand for truth. It has been an extremely hard month, and we're grateful to keep on carrying the torch and doing the work of empowering parents, promoting liberty, and again, just standing for truth. So we hope that you will bless this conversation, help people have ears to hear and eyes to see, and help it to be peaceful. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay. So like I said, we have Brooke here or Laverne in the library, and we're going to talk about what book banning is. A lot of people really have a hard time with that. They think that we are book banning. Now, the definition of book banning is literally to make books unavailable, period, everywhere. The government comes in and makes books unavailable. That is not what's happening here. So, Brooke, from there, I'll just let you take it until we get to the part that I have something to say about.
Okay. Let me share my screen really fast. And Carrie, actually, I'm going to let you say your thing first because I'm still
Okay.
trying to share this to my Facebook page.
Oh, okay. So then can I just pull it up from this? Yep, there we go. All right. So I got into the book conversation because I found it extremely insulting that people were trying to say, in 2020, when everything was about race, people were trying to say that we needed more diverse books. I obviously am a diverse person, and I felt like there were plenty of books. A little bit of my background is I was a foster parent for 5 years, and I also was a foster child. So I felt very strongly that the children, when they came into my home, needed to have a strong education. We had books everywhere. We did not watch a lot of movies. We listened to audiobooks in the car, to the point that like my 5-year-old foster son, who came to us nonverbal, would start to say, "Mommy, can we listen to Thomas Sawyer?" So that's kind of who we are. We're very uh, I have a shelf over on the side over here that is filled with books, including these so-called banned books, talking 1984, Animal Farm, Brave New World, not the books that are here. So what happened in 2020 is the librarian named Emily Drabinski became the president of the American Library Association. And the books took a hard turn. So instead of having these inspiring, beautiful stories like The Madman of Piney Woods, Elijah of Buxton, and other Christopher Paul, Curtis books that brought people together, books that unified. In this one, The Madman of Piney Woods, on the left, you'll see these little boys are at the beginning of the 19th century, 1800. Yeah. So the 19th century. And it is a Black boy and his best friend who happens to be an Irish boy. Their stories, none of the gory parts of their stories are necessarily hidden, but they still have a strong friendship. And when you're reading at you know, my son honestly read this in like 2nd grade, but when you're reading this at like a junior high level, that's a great thing to read. That brings people together. I support those kind of books. Other books were Rick Riordan's books. He had a whole series about a biracial brother and sister called, I think, the Kane Chronicles. It has been a long time, but I think it was called the Kane Chronicles. Just really great, normal books where the characters just happen to be of color, sending the message that we are all human and we have shared experiences. Now, if you don't mind, we'll go into a book called Monday's Not Coming. A friend of mine, a young woman, and by young woman, I mean she is currently a junior in high school. A couple of years ago, she was volunteering at our public library, which for us, it's Payson. And there was a book on the corner, and she thought that she'd pick it up. She was encouraged to pick up this book. She brings it home, and her mother says, "Hey, I'm going to ask Carrie about this book before you read it." So she called me, and I said, "I haven't heard of it, but we can look it up at ratedbooks.org." Remember that. That's ratedbooks.org. So I went to the front page while she's talking to me. She's like, "I don't have time." And I said, "Oh, just a second." And I pulled it up for her. So let me tell you some of the things it says. And like I said, I hope that none of you have children who can hear this conversation. Whatever, April, you don't you don't even go to school. You just get here to get some dick. She sucked my dick. She is effing all of them. Daryl, didn't you F my sister? Effing private parts. Man, effing, then the dumb B word. The B word is out of effing Turkey. Now, mind you, this was 2 years ago. This girl's a junior, so she would have been in junior high at the time. She would have been a ninth grader when she picked up this book that was encouraged to her. It was encouraged for her to read so that she could get a diverse perspective. Now, I have two major issues with this being a diverse perspective. The first is that there are so many positive books about people of color. There are books that are inspiring. I tell the stories. It's not a matter of I don't want them to know hard things. I tell the stories of Harriet Tubman, Elizabeth Freeman, other slaves. And I don't have a problem with telling their stories. But this is more of let's dilute the story with sex and vulgarity, and say we need to do this for minorities. Well, I went to the Capitol. I testified against these books, and the line of people with me, I should have had a picture of it, were people of color, people from the Ogden area who were like, we don't want this for our kids. We don't want this for our grandkids. It is extremely reductive to assume that people of color cannot choose or will not choose good quality books for their children. It is insulting, and it's also really, I would say it's damaging to put hardcore sexual content into a child's mind who maybe hasn't been exposed to any of that before. The other thing that is really damaging is that say a kid has been exposed to that, say that is their window, because that's the argument. People will say, they'll say, I need to look through a mirror. I need to look at a mirror. I need to see myself. I need to see my story reflected. Otherwise, I'm not going to read. That really shortens a child's education to say that they must only see from their own perspective, from the one that they're in right now. But more than that, it focuses them on the worst parts. It keeps them stuck instead of having these inspiring stories. And for me, again, growing up in the foster system, growing up with a lot of extreme trauma. In fact, as of last week, I became a 10 on the ACEs scale. So everything that you can have happen, I've now experienced. But growing up with that much trauma, it used to be good to escape. It used to be good to take foster kids and show them you can achieve so much more than this. There's the hero's journey. But instead of the hero's journey, these books encourage a darkness, a wallowing. They'll call it a validation, but I just don't see how it's a validation of an extremely promiscuous young woman. And there are multiple books like this. The same thing happens with suicide. And what I said when I gave testimony was diverse books don't have to be perverse. And I think another thing that's really important is that most of these books, especially if they're books talking about kids of color, and I understand that this is going to get touchy for some people, but the reality is that in the African American and the Hispanic communities, they're not really in favor of LGBTQ. It's just they're not. They're very traditional marriage. And so to put that stuff in their kids' minds when they don't want it there seems it seems abusive. And it is. The intent here is to it's called getting glitter in the carpet. They want to expose the kids to something that they wouldn't be exposed to regularly. And then they want to say, see, your parents deprived you from this. We're your new family. So I think that's a good start. I'll let you take it from there, Laverne. Yeah, Brenna.
Thank you. One of my favorite quotes that I hate is this one right here. Julie Gebhardt, she's been fighting this in Florida, and she says, and I'll say it again to all those who call us book banners, until Playboy's in kindergarten, you're all book banners. And like it's like sickeningly sad and horrifying when I read that, because that's the last thing I want. But it's the concept that's true. The concept is that we're protecting kids. They should not have this. And when you're protecting kids, you're going to have a judgment on what is appropriate for them. And that's what this is all about. And so, it's not book bans, and this proves it. I don't know anyone who would say, let's put a Playboy in a kindergarten. Personally know them, and I hope I don't meet them. So I think everyone can understand this concept at this level, and also understand the concept that book bans aren't happening. I'm going to stop sharing. Book bans aren't happening in the United States because they're available. I heard someone say that the only things that are actually banned is copyright infringement, child pornography, and military secrets. And so I just yeah, you can get everything and that stuff too. And so to say that there's a book ban is so false, misleading, and it's meant to incite the people to anger without having the right information. And so just identifying that as propaganda can help people say, you know what, before I react so strongly, let me see what it is. And so we've put the videos on here for people to see on ratedbooks.org. And this is what we use to get the law passed. And I'm just going to walk you through it so you can go and watch it yourself. But on our homepage, we have a video of a girl in Utah who the librarian recommended these books. And she got into such darkness privately, because you can't tell what someone's reading, that she ended up in juvenile hall. The darkness was so big. Now, when I review these books, the darkness is palpable. I will get angry, and like I was yelling at someone for customer service, the poor person on the phone. But it really changes your soul. And so this is the story of Megan, who's brave enough to see that it does change her soul. And then you have the story of her mother right after. So, the gut reaction is protect freedom of speech. We're America. How dare you? But the truth of it is everything they're saying is happening is not happening. And the darkness is as real as anything you've ever seen. Another way to see the darkness is if you go to, let me just show you how to navigate it. Oh, so here is a home back, show me. This is just what I threw up. When I first did the website, it was free. And I was like, well, the legislators need to see that this is real, because the Senator Weiler called me the night before and he's like, I'm going to go on the floor for this bill and I want to know it's real. So I want to see it. So that night we have 5 volunteers working for 5 hours, like 5 to 10 volunteers, just rechecking that all of these books were in the schools to back him up, to give him the screenshots to say, yes, this is legit. So if you scroll down, yes, my door is closed. You can see books that were in Utah schools. You can see how graphic it is. This is still, I believe, in Utah schools.
And I
We've
think it's
blocked it out.
important. I think it's important because a lot of people will say it's not porn if it doesn't have a picture. Now that's wrong in two ways. One, some of the most graphic porn that you can access online, um, snuff, things like that, come out of literary. So really, really graphic things. There's a book that was called Stealing Heaven, where a girl talks about her first time. And when you find out, she's talking about it with her mother. She has just slept with her mother's boyfriend with her mother's permission. And this was in our junior highs.
Well, see, the thing is that this stuff is so horrific that we had a forensic child psychologist who used to testify against predators in court. And so they would pay him to come in and he would have to watch all of the Pornhub videos that the pervert on trial had been watching. And he came and testified to our school district and said, this stuff that you have in the schools written out is worse than the videos that I'm watching in Pornhub to put these guys away in jail. It is. It's different. You have visuals. Women are more prone to literary stuff. They're more hooked on the pornographic stuff that's in writing because it has the feelings, it has all the senses. You know, it describes the sense, the taste. That's where more emotionally, and so you have the emotional connection in there. And so it sticks in our brain, it affects us more. And so to say that, you know, we're only going to go after people that have a visual or video or whatever, that's just saying we're just going to care how it affects the men. At least that's how I see it. And so these descriptions are more impactful for me as a woman, especially as an avid reader. I would read all the time in high school, like even more than going out. And so, oh well, but I love to read. I keep my favorite books by my bed just because I love them and they're my friends. But you can see, like, this is what did you do to mom? And you see this here. This isn't in Utah schools anymore, but these are in schools. These are all sorts of positions you can get in, you know, talking about masturbation, having sex with corpses. These are all ones I found in Utah. Two boy cousins, age 11, talking about their first time together and with all the details. But so this, you can find this under home and show me. And I'm not going to show it, but this is the video that what I'm trying to say is the propaganda is to get you to believe that shouldn't be happening. When in reality, when people see this, here's this man on the street video from PragerU. When he shows it to them, the first thing they say before he shows it is, oh yeah, do not ban those books. That's horrible that they're doing it. Free speech, go America. Then they see it and say, no, this should not be in schools as soon as they see it. The problem is people don't see it. They don't have access to this because you can't put it on TV. You can't put it on the news. And in Utah, they will not let you read it. They will let you read it in, I believe, Florida. So people can read it there, but not in Utah, which is really disturbing to me because if you are fighting for free speech and then you shut it down and you won't let them hear it. Now, I hate reading it out loud. So, you know, but you have to know what it is to fight it because it's so difficult for me to watch this. It brings me to such a dark place where I literally sob for hours. The darkness is so heavy that that I try not to look at it because it makes me angry. It makes me sad. And but when I don't, then I just, you know, oh well, I did my best. That's all I can do. And the truth is that we need to be fighting this. We need to be fighting for kids and protecting them. And there's really no excuse if we know it's here and we back off. And so one of the reasons I had created Rated Books was to show people what can you do. And so we have the Get Started tab right here. And this is a video on how to search your school. This is the link to go look it up. And we put out newsletters, about 20 to 25 books every month that you can say, as soon as I get that newsletter, go to the bottom. Here we go. Go to the bottom, put your email in, you'll get the newsletter. When you get that newsletter, you go search right here in your school, and then you challenge it. So it's just starting with those 20 to 25. And they actually keep getting worse. Our rating system, we've had to expand it and expand it and expand it because of the perverse, vulgar, and ugly things that we're finding in these books. That we're like, whoa, this is a 3 or 4, this is a 4, or this is a 5. 5 is the worst. 0 is like rated G, and rated 4 is like the movie equivalent of NC-17. Rated R is 3. So Monday's Not Coming, what Carrie was showing us, was rated 3 or rated R. And a 5 is especially perverse. So I'll show you that and the new things we had to put into there. So here's your getting started page. Yeah.
Okay, so a few things. One, you said that it incites people to anger. But one of the things that's important to understand is that there are reasons why this is happening. And another group that it incites to anger is students against parents. So I had my nephew out this summer, and he said to me, "Oh, Aunt Carrie, you would love this teacher. She was teaching us all about banned books, the same stuff that you do." And I was like, actually, that's not my wheelhouse. But he started talking to me and he said, yeah, they want to get rid of books like 1984. They want to get rid of Fahrenheit 451. And I said, that is so interesting. I just listened to him. And then I showed him the most mild of the pictures from, I want to call it the Squad, the one where the girls, no, not it's the one where she cuts after being sexually assaulted. So in that one, she cuts herself, and it was in our junior highs. It is required reading for junior high literacy. And I showed it to him and I said, so, and he's like, and I was like, so imagine reading that 2 years ago. Imagine reading that when you're in 7th and 8th grade. And I'm so sorry, I can't think of what the book is called. Yeah, The Squad is gross.
I don't see The Squad. Oh well.
It's the one where they all think they're vampires and they tear out the guy's spleen.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So but the thing is that before having the little tiny conversation with him in the car, before having that short conversation, he thought that book banning parents were basically the worst, most awful people. And they were, I mean, honestly, he thought they were Nazis. That's what he thought, because that's what he was told to think. And
yep.
that is the narrative. How do we divide families? How do we make the younger generation think the old generation is out of touch, doesn't get it, wants to censor them, and so I think that's an important point to bring up.
Yeah, exactly. And this is a classic case of told what to think because they cannot show it to them. They can't give it to them. They're providing it in the libraries, they're recommending it, they're putting things on there. But if you show it to them outside of a school where you do not have an obscenity exemption. So just so you know, libraries and most educational institutions have an obscenity exemption, and that's why they're getting around this. Otherwise, if you handed this to them in the park and you weren't a library, you weren't a school, you could be charged for distributing pornography to a minor. So when Utah passed the law, it was already in the criminal code, and they just brought it into the education code to overcome the obscenity exemption because it said it has no serious value to minors. Let me just see if I can find that book for you, the werewolf one. It's not Saga. I just want to show them the types of things, because even if the rating isn't very high, you still have things that are so dark and that bring you down that it's like, why do you need this? There's so many wonderful, uplifting, good books out there. Anyway, you can go through, you can browse. I think it's Wolf Song. Is that what it was?
Um, n- no,
Okay, never
it's
mind.
not Wolf Song, but that's
Okay,
okay.
we'll let that go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we have the if you go to home and you go to background information, we actually have a video of legal counsel from the American Library Association saying in a May 2020 webinar that the thing that needs, and I'm not going to play it, but you can play it right here. The thing that needs to happen most is sustained messaging that reframes this issue, that takes it away from the idea that these are sexually inappropriate for minors. She admits it. They are sexually inappropriate for minors, and promote them as diverse materials and programming that are about inclusion and fairness and protection of everyone's right to see themselves. So it's a concerted effort. It's an agenda being pushed that they know that these are sexually inappropriate for minors. This is legal counsel from the American Library Association from her own mouth. So this is what's happening. And actually in 2009, it goes back further, they wanted to create a new genre. And that new genre of books was called New Adult, not Young Adult, New Adult. And what they wanted in it was that they were more sexually explicit content, because they said, oh, the 18 to 26-year-old crowd wants more sexually explicit content in your books. You want to find these, go to Target. They have them all right there. All the authors
Walmart
that are
too.
super,
Mhm.
yeah, and Walmart. A lot of these authors are, that's where it is. And then, oh, there's not enough room on the shelves for a new adult genre, for a new genre. So they're putting it into the young adult genre. So a lot of them have been pushed. Also, they've been given awards by the American Library Association saying, hey, here's a great book, but people don't know what it is. And so that's why BookLooks, who was before Rated Books, all of the reports have the page number and the excerpt. So you can judge for yourself and see for yourself what it is that's so objectionable. And so that's what we're committed to doing, is giving the proof there. Page numbers may vary because we're different versions. We might have a PDF version. The ISBN numbers might have different pagination. And so you just have to look for those pages, but they're there, even if the page numbers are different. Okay. So let's go back to how to get the most out of this site if you want to protect your kids. So we have our rated reports, and right here we have our spreadsheet. And this is really useful because, go here, but sorted by rating. You can see all of this. And so I go through and I just start typing in the names. I type in the author, I type in the names, and I see what is in my school. And so you can do that and just go down, and they're rated 4, 5s, and 3s. And let's just sort it by Z to A. So we'll do all the 5s first. So we give it to you in this format so you can use this. We also have it searchable down here. So you could say, okay, I want to look for the 5s and the 4s. And we haven't really challenged many 3s because we still have 5s and 4s in Utah. And so we're putting our effort on that. And the 3s, occasionally we'll be able to get to them. And so we do need everybody so we can get those done, but we have it by content. So say what books have abortion in them, what books have alcohol and addiction.
I
And
love
so
that you've
you
got
can,
one that says activism, right? Because that's another thing oftentimes that has nothing to do with sex. And
yeah.
it's just pure activism, hatred. You know, what are our
Oh
kids
yeah.
being influenced by?
Yeah, that is, so you'll see this book rating thing. This was for most of the books or book looks, but we've done almost 100, more, a little bit 100 by our standards. These are the standards from book looks. And let's go look at the rated reports, the rating system, so you can see what we've needed to add into it. So this is our new one. And one of the things that we just added was shockingly profane, sexual or obscene content to denigrate or ridicule revered religious figures, symbols, or texts. And that's frequent in there, and that's very jarring, and it's very it's vicious. And where it would have been like, oh no, this really happened to us, this is something. This is to attack people of faith. It's to erode their faith by normalizing this um, you know, negation of anything that's holy. And so we added that in. We're having to add more, let's see, graphic or gratuitous violence, detailed and visceral sensory descriptions of severe injury, gore, or mutilation. You think, well, they shot him, there's blood everywhere and whatever, and that's what we're used to. But now we're seeing way more details, but horrifying details. And so we've had to add that in. So we're trying to maintain consistency in these ratings by making sure that we're using our guidelines and our description in order to rate each book and having integrity with that. And if anybody has any suggestions, we love to hear them, because we want this to be able to work for most people that they can rely on. And school districts across the nation are using our reports, and we're so glad that they are to protect kids.
Can we
Okay.
can
Yeah.
we hit so I have a list of library tactics and tactics that are being used in some libraries. Again, I like to be really clear. We're not trying to be hyperbolic here. There are great librarians who are just as horrified as we are. I mean, a lot of librarians are parents, right? But the American Library Association has pushed out some guidance that you may recognize in your own library. So I'm just going to go down that list. One is rebranding. Many libraries have adopted inclusion strategies that emphasize identity politics over neutrality. So that would be when you go in and you say, hey, do you think you could do a section over here? We're not asking you to remove the books. We're just asking you to do a rainbow section over here so that kids who don't want that don't need that. Because quite frankly, we're turning kids. They're actually feeding a fire of kids who are tired of it. And I know that because I engage with a lot of those kids and they're like, why is this always in my face? So it's not actually inclusive. So that's the first one, is that the priority is to normalize and really just push gender, push when stories that are more nuanced would probably be more acceptable to most people. Examples of tactics: creating LGBTQIA sections and promoting them with displays, putting those displays, especially ones that are anti-Christian, on purpose. There's a book, I don't know if you can pull it up, but it's called Gay the Pray Away. Hear that again. Gay the Pray Away. And the book literally is about a middle school girl, or she might be high school. I think she's 15-year-old girl, doesn't know that she's in a cult with her conservative parents. It's like typing in AI, hey, make a story that is anti-conservative and anti-Christian and has a girl falling in love with a lesbian. And then it just like pops that out. I mean, and that's how bad like the writing is in these books too. Hosting drag queen story hours or author visits focused on gender and sexuality. Reimagining classics. Here's the big one that a lot of parents go, why? What is your problem with Anne of Green Gables? What is your problem with this? And they don't understand that reimagined is reimagined to make characters queer, or to make or to include, usually both, right? Usually to change their gender attraction. So Anne is no longer in love with, is it Peter? Okay. So Anne is no longer in love with him and instead is truly in love with her bosom buddy. I think that was Rebecca. It's been a long time. So reimagining Diana, that's right. Yes. Reimagining classics with sexual or ideological twists to align with activist agendas. Mind you, I am reading this off of ChatGPT. I'm not reading this off of some Christian website. I asked ChatGPT very specific or very basic questions. How are libraries being made more quote unquote inclusive?
So I just have to tell you that this
Yeah.
promotion of LGBTQ and queer and all of that is putting into our culture this idea that it should be pushed. And my 12-year-old daughter is in junior high, where she is constantly approached by lesbian classmates and given books that show LGBTQ stuff, like graphic novels, opening it and giving it to them. And she is being touched by them inappropriately at the school. And, because they're emboldened to push this, because the librarians and the libraries are pushing this. So as people, they're pushing it onto their peers. And that's what's happening to my daughter. So they're seeing from this, oh, this is okay to push my belief on you, like literally to touch you, literally to show you pictures, literally to say, you're hot, let's get together, when my daughter has made it clear that she is not about that. So pushing this
Yep.
is modeling for our kids what can and cannot be done. And conversely, I want to say, by not standing up to it, we are saying, yes, that's okay. That's okay to be okay with pushing this in my face. And so that's what's happening to my kids in school. And I want to show something else. You're talking about gender dysphoria books. And it's like, okay, if they have an agenda, obviously they have the books that are, here's the gender dysphoric books in this list. So let's just look at it. This is a list of all of the books that promote books that say, yes, let's transition. Gender dysphoria is real. You can be born in the wrong body. And just so you know how to get there, click on gender dysphoria, click on the gender dysmorphic books in this list. And then down here, we have the pro body books. They're few in number. It would be nice if we had more, but how you can tell is, are any of these books in the schools? No. Are there any books about detransitioners in the schools? No, there are not. There is a clear agenda. There is only one side being presented. And that's what shows us that this is all about an agenda being pushed, is the absence of the other side. It is not there. So, so try and get one of those books and just go have a conversation with the librarian and say, here's a book. I would love it if you could put it in. How do I get a book accepted? See what they say. Because we can make a difference with conversations one-on-one. And most people who I've talked to, they start out pretty positive, but then they they see what's really out there. But I encourage you to go out there with your Pollyanna spirit. So
Brooke, will you pull up, the book is called The Squad. The reason I want you to show it is because its imagery is so, it looks like anything that you'd pick up and be like, of course, this book is, so cheer up. Do you not have, it's,
who's the author?
good question. Let's see. I saw it.
Because I know I've seen the images of it.
Yeah, it is called The Squad Tryout. Of course, I can't see it. It's super blurry. The Squad, a graphic novel, maybe? If you put it,
Okay.
if you type, I don't know, try graphic novel.
I'll look for it. I'm going to look for it a different way. So why don't you take it away while I find this book, okay?
Okay. Okay.
Put you
Yeah.
on the spot.
Uh-huh.
Sorry.
So the first question to ask is, if we can rate movies, why are we not allowed to rate books? If you want to understand where this comes from, this has been going on since like the 1960s. This was part of the feminist movement. And a lot of people feel that parents are not equipped. Children need to be educated by quote unquote experts. And the experts, again, I'm going to pull it back to what I used to be. I used to be a foster parent. I have been trained in actual trauma-informed care. Brooke was a foster parent. We've been trained in this. So it's not a matter of oh, we're just, these zealots. That is not what's going on here. This is strongly, I don't have another word for it than abusive. And I am a adult survivor of child sexual abuse. Um, Putting these things into kids' heads will fundamentally change who they are. And that is really the goal. The goal is, though what they call it is kindness. And I could go on a whole tangent on that, but I don't want to. I just want to look through all of my lists and make sure that I've got child development readiness. I am closer to 50 than I'd like to admit, and I'm not ready for a lot of the things in these books, because they're nightmare inducing. Now let's talk about that, because we talk about mental health in our schools and how we need good mental health for our kids, but then we're putting the most vile in this book. The Squad, the girl is date raped, and of course she is, by a white male. And so her group of friends come out and they eat his spleen. They turn into werewolves and they eat his spleen, and they show it all. So it's really quite, dark isn't even, it's intentional. And then you have to understand that there is a very strong anti-Christian sentiment. So our empathy can be weaponized. Oh, we just want to be kind. We want to make sure that everybody feels seen. There was a situation in our school where in the libraries, the toddlers, they were putting transgender books in the toddler kits at the library, and they weren't telling the parents. And when a group of parents got up and said, we are asking for a sticker on these bins, then they found out that the stickers had actually been taken off, because the stickers used to be there. There used to be rainbow stickers. There used to be stickers for each subject, and the librarians have actually pulled them off. And it was heated. The head librarian would not come to the meeting at the city council. Instead, she was on a computer over a Zoom and yelling at the parents, basically for being quote unquote bigoted. But you have to make a choice at some point. And it's a hard choice to make. We shouldn't have to make it. It used to be common sense that you protect your kids. But if protecting your kids is bigoted and abusing your kids is kindness, then we have a real problem here. Do you want to go into some of the history, Brooke?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I found the book. So,
Okay, yeah, just if we can pull that up just to show
yeah,
is,
I'm gonna just a
yeah, go ahead.
second. I'm downloading it right now. I couldn't find a
Okay.
report. I know I've seen it. It's funny that I can't find it, but yeah, let me go into the
It's
history.
just, it doesn't, and that's on purpose, right? So the books look like something that any parent would say, oh, I read that book as a kid. Now they have it as a graphic novel. That'll be great because my child struggles with reading. And then all of a sudden your child is in a dark place.
Yeah. I mean, it's really dark. I mean, even if as adults, and I've heard all this terrible stuff, I've seen it. I went through foster care training for the kids, and I heard all this stuff. They try, before you become a foster parent, they try and scare you away from doing it. They give you all the horror stories because they don't want you to change your mind. So, I had to hear all these hard things that happen to children. And and so it's not like I came into it naive and, oh my goodness, this is the first time I've heard it. But for kids, they're so innocent, and then you have them experience it in the worst possible way alone, and it
Well, there's the
normalization is
opposite
real.
too, because not every kid is innocent. There are kids, especially if they've been abused, who this normalizes it. And then they read about it, and then they oftentimes will become predators themselves. That does happen, for kids, especially who have been abused.
Right. They it makes predators more bold. It gives them ideas. And, so it's creating more predators. And that's another thing that I hated about this was that children who are survivors of this type of abuse, more predators are being groomed and created because more people have access to these sick and disgusting, twisted evil interactions. So let me just pull this up really fast for you. I found one of the pages, and it's just so dark. It's not cool. Okay, let me just find. Am I sharing my screen?
Not yet. You're not. Nope. In the chats, we're getting that this is in Scholastic Book Fairs. Yes, Scholastic Book Fairs usually, they usually have a page, at least a page dedicated to queer books. Now, I say this all the time. Queer is not necessarily anti-lesbian or gay. Queer means anything out of the normal. So you might get furry. You might get, honestly, there is a book called Pride Parade where an old man is in very little clothing talking to a kid who's watching it. And that's questionable.
Okay, so share screen just a sec. Okay, here we go. So here is the scene from Squad where this woman, she decides to become here, let's see that, got to be careful around them. Don't be this way, and he's coming on to this girl. So they turn into a werewolf. You see that. And then she starts eating out this guy's spleen. But you don't have to watch, but it's more fun if you do. I mean, it's so animalistic. And here she is eating, as a werewolf, eating his heart. And now she changes back into a human. Hey, it's your turn to go tear up this guy, So it's just absolutely, I don't see any redeeming qualities to this book, except to make kids less sensitive, less empathetic, less kind.
They call it the myth of
darker.
innocence. They call it the myth of innocence, and they want the idea of innocence, because innocence, when you're innocent, you look for someone to care for you, ideally your family. You break away from your family when you have that forced autonomy in a shocking way. There's also shame. No kid is going to be reading this in front of their parent going, hey, look at this funny picture. They're reading it in dark places, they're hiding it under their beds, whatever else. It's separating that relationship.
And they think they're the weird one because the librarian thinks it's okay, but they innately know that this is dark and evil. And there's no one to affirm to them that, yes, this is dark and evil, because the adults are handing it to them. So,
yeah. Okay, let's talk about the history.
The history. Here we go. Okay, so this is fascinating to me. I read this book called A War We Must Win, and here's the timeline. In 1964, there was pornographic material, and the AG for California, he was trying to get these pornographic movies, and there was no rating system at the time. He was trying to get the movies and the plays so you couldn't have these pornographic things. So he wanted a rating system. So he put a bill in to have a rating system, Senate Bill 372 in 1968 in California. And the Motion Picture Association came in and said, don't do the bill, we'll do it ourselves. So like the fox guarding the hen house, right? But that's how we got the rating system. And everything else is rated but books. So this isn't a new idea. We need it to protect kids. We need it to protect our society. And in fact, the argument that this is freedom of speech is crazy, because freedom of speech, the idea is to convey ideas. And I love this quote because it says, The First Amendment argument is in regard to ideas. There are no ideas here that are in danger of suppression, only degenerate, vulgar, crude exploitation of sexual deviancy. So your ideas are just fine. It's this deviancy that is so problematic into undermining our society. And Robert Bork, he was also commenting on the First Amendment. And he was talking about, I'm just going to read this right here. There are certain well-defined and narrowly limited classes of speech, the prevention and punishment of which have never been thought to raise any constitutional problems. These include the lewd and obscene, the profane, the libelous, and the insulting or fighting words, those which by their very utterance inflict injury or tend to incite an immediate breach of the peace. And that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about anybody's ideas. And so we have to defend our children, but also the morality that allows us to exist in a society, a civilized society, where people have respect for one another. The problem with this pornographic content is we're giving it to youth, to boys who don't understand what real intimacy looks like and what a woman really wants. And they read this and think, well, maybe that's what she wants. There was a story I heard about a young man who did exactly that. He's like, well, everything I watched and read, women like this. And so, you know, he attacked her. And so they don't have the discernment or life experience to know that this is perverted material, especially when trusted adults are giving it to them. They think that this perversion should be regular, normal, and that they're the ones who are abnormal because it's so shocking to them. So anyway, they got it passed. The movie rating system came about in 1960, late 1960s. And I just want to say again, you know, they were using librarians to defend movies and plays that were obscene and lewd and degenerate. And why were they getting them to do it? Because everybody respects librarians. But the ALA, the American Library Association, is the only organization that I know of that can accredit a library science program in a university. They receive federal funds to do that. In the American Library Association Bill of Rights, I believe it was 1993, they said that they will not discriminate based on age, which means they can put Playboy in a kindergarten classroom because they will not discriminate based on age. When they say that this is age appropriate, they're talking about reading levels. They're not talking about content at all. So, you know, people have been blindly trusting them, thinking that librarians have this, you know, goodwill, but they've been trained by the American Library Association to not be moral. They're saying morality, deciding what is good and bad, is a bad thing for a librarian to do. But if we have libraries for the community that believes in morality, then librarians must be discerning according to that morality. They're not there to change it. That's not their job. But they've been trained to think that way. And so we need to have conversations with them that say, hey, guess what? Morality is one of the ways that you should discern between these books, because are you going to have books that promote shooting up drugs? Are you going to have books that promote and teach you how to build bombs? You know, they're having these things that are destructive of our society and our very moral fabric. We're almost done. I'm going to read one quote. I know it's 9 o'clock. Okay. So on page 121 of this book, it says, an established morality is as necessary as good government to the welfare of society. You can have a great government, but if the people are not moral, it cannot exist. Society is justified in taking the same steps to preserve its moral code as it does to preserve its government and other essential institutions. And so that's what we're about. We're about preserving the morality, the innocence of children, so that our society can continue to function and we can give the best of our decades and centuries of beautiful books to our children so that they can become better instead of progressively worse through these bad books.
I just have this one. The push for sexual diversity often overshadows stories of courage, kindness, heritage, and resilience. That's what should be in our books.
Yes.
Those are the stories that build up people rather than tearing them down and causing just like, I want to remove, because the people who are most likely to stumble upon this are going to be people who are against it. And so I want to remove any religious argument here and just say, in terms of that human experience, do we want people who are genuinely kind without redefining what kind means? Because, like I said, there's some people who are saying kind and they're saying kill all the people who aren't. That's going on right now. So, heritage. I went to Gays Against Groomer, and I sent them a message and I said, can you give me a list of books that have gay and lesbian characters, that they just happen to be gay or lesbian, but there's not graphic sex in? They could come up with a list. And I am like, if I could find that list, I honestly would put it out, because not because I support, not because I don't support, like that's off the table here. I want to know why diverse means that it must have graphic sexual violence in books. That's what I want to know. Why does it have to have that? Why do our books, the other big issue is activism. Why do you find a book on art and it's art and activism? Because we're dealing with a cultural revolution. That's
Yes.
the fact. We're dealing with a cultural revolution. They want it on our kids. We fight the Hydra at all of these different levels, but they want our kids doing the same thing. They want it in your history lessons. They want it in, everything else. And then they also want it in your recreation, in your video games, in your books. The same constant narrative. This is just shoved down your face. And it is actually the one good thing, I guess, maybe, is that people are sick of it and the kids are fighting back. They're just they can see it. It's so blatant. But then they're also frustrated because they're saying, as they've said more than once, so when are the adults going to do something about it?
Yeah.
So,
We're join us. And if you're here, we love you. We need you. Yeah, this is something that the whole society, moms, dads, everywhere can get involved, have conversations with your librarian, with your school. We're here to help
with
you.
your
Call us up.
kids. With
Yeah.
your kids, please have a discussion with your kids. This is in your library. I just had somebody today who said, are they going to change this thing? And I said, the short answer is no. And they're like, well, what do we do? And I said, well, you wait a couple of years and then you run for office. Because, like, the short answer is no. We have people who are afraid of being sued. The American Library Association has said, if you don't do, they definitely play the carrot and the stick. You get these rewards if you have this kind of display, and you get this punishment if you don't do what we say. That's real. So,
Yeah. Well,
all right.
I just have to do one more thing, because I have so many resources, and I just want people to know that as they're having these conversations, that they can use a lot of research. You go to Fight the New Drug, and all of this pornography fuels sex trafficking. And then I have it linked on my website, but these are all of the citations that prove it. So as you're going to have these conversations, you have research on your side to prove how damaging this is. This one says it promotes sexual violence. Here's all the research behind it. This is how porn can actually change your brain. Research. It can affect your brain like a drug. It makes you addicted. Research. And how porn can impact mental health and fuel loneliness, and all of the research. So make sure that when you go, you can have that backing you, because most likely they're going to say, actually, the research proves that this is good for kids, and they're going to make you feel like you're crazy. So go in well armed.
And I'm just going to leave it open really quickly. If anybody has any questions that they want to answer, feel free, or would like answered, feel free to ask. And I'm just going to check on our places and see if anyone has any questions for us. I see that happened to my niece in California. Yep, I see a lot of people saying that happened. This happened, that happened. This is, I don't think there's any other word for it than attack on our kids.
Mhm. And kids are learning to attack their peers if they don't believe the same way.
Yes. Yep. And another thing is that people, they'll flat out lie. Like, I have a high schooler, and when the librarian said, we don't want to put stickers on the books because the kids will get bullied for being part of LGBTQ, he and his friends said, that's about as like the one thing we are not allowed to mock at all in any way, shape, or form. That is the protected class that we hear about all the time. So that's not happening. Yes, Gabby says, I'm truly impressed by this information, and I'm sure Hispanic mothers have no idea. Of course not. Of course not. Probably just, I mean, those of that age are probably just excited that the kids are reading. Oh, and especially if there's a language barrier there.
Well, we
So,
actually I have some of the book reports in Spanish. I had a mom in Texas translate them into Spanish. I just haven't had time to upload them, but I can get them to you. And these books are in Spanish at the schools. So we'll find them in English and in Spanish. So we definitely
wow.
need the Hispanic moms to help us out.
All right. Well, everybody, thank you. We'd like to keep it about as on time as possible. So Brooke, thank you so much for joining today, and we'll get this out. And if you have friends who missed it and you want to share it, just let us know. You can also immediately share it directly from our YouTube channel, which is Utah Moms for America. And thank you for joining us. We will see you next time. Bye.
Bye.